Today I want to show you how to solve absolute value equations. Remember, the absolute value simply makes a number positive, so we can have these things called absolute value equations that we're asked to solve. So you see one here, solve the absolute value of x equals 7. Before we get all excited and solve the absolute value equations, I want to solve a simple linear equation like you did earlier in Algebra 1. 5x minus 1 equals negative 6. Remember, you would add 1 on both sides, and you would get 5x equals negative 5. You then divide by 5, and you get x equals negative 1. Now, how do we know that that's actually the answer? Well, we go back and we plug it in for x up here. So we would end up seeing if it works. So 5 times the quantity, negative 1 minus 1, does that equal negative 6? Negative 5 minus 1, does that equal negative 6? Well, it does, yes. Yes, so that means we've checked it, and x equals negative 1 is called the solution here. Now, going back to the absolute value equation, we're going to try to find the solution. We're going to try to find the x values that would go on the inside here that would actually make this equation true. So the absolute value of what is 7? Well, certainly one of the answers is 7, right? Since the absolute value of 7 is definitely 7. That's clear, right? We all know that. We just make the answer positive. It still stays positive. Is there another answer maybe whose absolute value is 7? Well, the second answer is negative 7. The absolute value of negative 7 is 7. So we have two answers to the absolute value equation. Most of the absolute value equations do give two different answers. So we have to keep that in mind as we're solving these. Now let's look at a slightly larger absolute value equation. The absolute value of x plus 1 equals 7. Now, if you think about it, this stuff that's on the inside could come out to be positive 7 or negative 7. If either is the case, right, absolute value of 7 is 7. We said that on the previous page. The absolute value of negative 7 is also 7. So if the stuff in the middle comes out to be that, we will be in good shape. So how do we neatly set this up so that we can get our two answers? Well, I like to call it branching things out. So we're going to branch out the original problem. We're going to say that the stuff on the inside could be 7. The x plus 1 could equal 7. Or the stuff on the inside, the x plus 1, could come out to be negative 7. And if that's the case, we will have found a solution. So we then solve these two equations separately. X equals 6. We add or subtract 1 on both sides over here. We get x equals negative 8. There's our two answers. Now let's go ahead and check these answers, at least on this first problem, so that you can see that indeed both of these work. Does the absolute value of 6 plus 1, does that equal 7? Yes, it sure does. What about the absolute value of negative 8 plus 1? Now that's a little trickier, of course. Does that equal 7? Well, on the inside here, we have negative 7. So yes, the absolute value of negative 7 does equal 7. So yes, that's also a solution. So we've just checked it, and both of those answers are solutions because if I plug them in, they work. Okay, so now we're going to start to build up the difficulty of the number steps involved here, but it really starts out the same way. So we're going to start out by saying the expression in the middle, 2x minus 1, that could come out to be 3 or negative 3. So I'm going to branch this problem off into two equations. Notice there is no absolute value in my writing anymore, right? Some students accidentally keep the absolute value there, but that's incorrect. We're actually getting rid of the absolute value by taking care of both situations. So we're going to add 1 on both sides. 2x equals 4. Divide by 2, x equals 2 is one of the solutions. We're going to add 1, we're going to add 1. 2x equals negative 2. Divide by 2, x equals negative 1. So we got the answers 2 and negative 1. Notice we didn't get 2 and negative 2 or 1 and negative 1. We often get completely different numbers, and in fact, they can both be positive, they can both be negative. You don't even have to have one positive and one negative. Just know that you're going to get two solutions. So here's another problem. All I did was change up the expression where the x is second here, but we're going to do it the same way. We're going to say the stuff on the inside, the expression 5 minus 3x could come out to be positive 2, or another way that we would find a solution is if that expression comes out to be negative 2. and then you just solve it. So I'm going to minus 5 on both sides. Negative 3x equals negative 3. Divide by negative 3. And you get one of your answers is positive 1. Over here, I'm going to minus 5. I'm doing this quickly because I know that you know how to solve linear equations, right? We then divide by negative 3, and we get x equals positive 7/3. So here's an example where we got two positives for our answer. So that can totally happen. We don't have to get one positive and one negative. All right, so now I'm going to throw you a couple of different curveballs. Imagine if I said solve the absolute value of y is negative 7. So what value could we put in for y? What number could we put right in there that would give us an absolute value that comes out to be negative? The answer is never, right? There is no solution. There is no solution for y where this would ever happen. So what about this next problem, the absolute value of x plus 7? When would that absolute value ever be negative 1? Never. This one is also no solution. So if you have the absolute value all by itself on the left side and then you have a negative number on the right, you are guaranteed the answer is no solution. All right, it's really important that you see this problem because there's a couple things going on here. You see how we have some extra stuff on the outside of the absolute value, and we have a negative on the right side. So you might think you could just say no solution, but that is not the case here. Watch. We're going to try to get the absolute value of x plus 4 all by itself. We're going to try to figure out what's on the other side. That's our first goal, is to get the absolute value isolated. So I'm going to add 5 on both sides. And I now have 2 times the absolute value of x plus 4 equals 2. Now, I don't like to distribute that 2 in there. Instead, what I'm going to do is divide both sides by 2. So I end up getting a 1 here. Now we branch it off and we get x plus 4 could be 1, x plus 4 could be negative 1, and the answers are, what are they? X equals negative 3, and over here I'll show my work so I don't mess this up, right? X equals negative 5. So we've solved all different kinds of absolute value equations today. And remember, the trick is to get the absolute value all by itself and then branch it off, that you almost always get 2 answers on absolute value equations. Hey, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you'll have easy access to all of the instructional videos that I'm posting. All right, good luck. Until next time.